An action-based platformer with tricky jumps, visceral and varied combat, has only a few days left on its Kickstarter to reach its goal. On this Speedpass, let's dive into the Kickstarter demo for Vernal Edge. I saw this game floating around the retweet circles on Twitter, and I was immediately drawn in by the art style and what I saw of the combat mechanics. So I figured I would stream the demo, record it while I was streaming, hope that I didn't see my recording issue pop up, it did but not that badly, and put together this video so my ever-failing YouTube channel could at least maybe draw in a few more eyes to this campaign. And let's talk about that art style, shall we? It's another one of those situations where pixel art is just off the charts in detail and animation. Every part of each sprite, from your characters to the background, is awash in detail. Though I feel the color palette is just a bit lacking. Is that just me? Like, everything just seems very muted, and while serving a very unified aesthetic, that unification tends to make a lot of things blur together on occasion. The sky in this stage is a muted brown, the same color as most of the game's enemies. Vernal's green coat is nearly the exact shade of a lot of the vegetation in the foreground. It's a pretty game to look at for sure, but it's not completely easy to keep track of what's going on at all times. I'd also love to talk more about the music, but this game is surprisingly quiet. Even starting the game, the defaults are set so low that I wasn't sure the demo had music beyond its title screen. And even maxing both the music and the sound in options still placed it at a kind of audible level. It's a pity, as this game's music is unique and interesting enough for a listen. You can even get the OST from the demo for free on Bandcamp if you search it up. I especially enjoy these combat themes, which basically will add more intensity to the existing stage theme, by adding more guitar and bass lines. I just hope that later versions of the game will boost this bass volume. You can always turn volume down to 0, but you can't turn it up past 10. And no Spinal Tap references, guys, you're better than that. How the game plays is all down to part platforming, exploration, and combat, which is illustrated rather brilliantly by the demo. Your mission is to grab an artifact after activating 3 keystones, and the path to each keystone illustrates one of these 3 points. The path to the blue keystone involves more tricky platforming to help you get used to wall jumping and using sword slashes to travel longer jumps and the like. The path to the green keystone involves environmental puzzle mechanics, finding a switch and remembering your way back in time to a point that you can reach that keystone. The red path is fraught with more enemy gauntlets and tougher battles in general. You can tackle these in any order before finding all 3 to face off against a boss. If there's any sour note to the demo, it's that I don't feel it naturally teaches you a lot of the nuances to this combat without just dumping a text block on you and some basic explanations on how each mechanic works. Essentially, you have 3 means of attack: sword, magic, and pulse. Basic attacks with the sword are powerful and somewhat quick, but not extremely fast. They'll hit hard and do decent damage for combo potential, but tend to have a lot of downtimes with swings that you can easily get countered with. You'll find in experimentation that you'll have upward attacks, a slide kick, and several other ways to keep up mobility while delivering the beatdowns. The magic system can be cast with an assigned magic button with a Super Smash Bros. Kind of system, in that pressing the button with no direction will use one type of spell, and pressing it in any other direction can change to a different spell. The demo will assign you 3, a combo-filling Barrage skill that fires a ton of shots towards your opponent, the defensive barrier that encircles you with damaging orbs, and my favorite of the 3, a buzzsaw that heads out a short distance ahead of you, remaining in place for a short while before vanishing and doing constant damage to anything it's hovering over. Pressing an unassigned direction with magic will act the same as pressing no button, but I was able to locate a new spell in the game that I could assign to up later on, which was some form of long-delayed orbital laser strike. Magic can help keep up the pressure as it easily supplements any attacks during a physical combo's downtime. Pulse is the mechanic I kept having to remember that I had the ability to use, since it wasn't something I found often very useful, but the combo potential is unquestionably there. Basically, you toss out an energy sword which will stick to any enemy it hits, even during a return trip if you missed your initial shot. Once an enemy is marked, you can use energy from your pulse meter to attack in a number of ways, similar to how magic works. If you press pulse with no direction, you'll simply retrieve your sword. Pressing up and pulse on a marked enemy would have the sword slash at them regardless of where they were on screen. Pressing down and pulse would have Vernal rush in front of the marked enemy and perform a quick stabbing combo, while pressing left or right would have Vernal flipping and flying over to the marked enemy in a semi-direct line to perform a quick combo on them. I could understand the situational usefulness of each attack, But my tendency to push buttons, waggle joystick in so many combat situations would have Vernal take unnecessary damage from enemies that were more than ready for a rushdown attack. You also have the means to block attacks with timing, in a similar vein to the basic counter system in Blasphemous, in which you'll take no damage and open up a short window to counter. Not all the enemies are going to be left open after a counter, so be wary of that. Enemies, of course, mostly aren't going to allow you to just wail on them, so the poise system is in play to keep you varying your attacks up. If an enemy has one or more blue orbs under their health bar, you cannot freely combo them with no retaliation until you've removed those orbs, and the means of doing so may differ for each enemy. If you do manage to remove all of them, you'll stun them for a marked period of time, letting you really let loose with your combo prowess. I warmed up to the game a lot more as things started to make more sense, and I would love to see where this all goes. If I could offer any feedback, or at least recap anything I already stated, I would like to see some more involved tutorials of these combat mechanics. It doesn't have to be super hand-holdy, but a basic character explanation with a couple situations to try them out on would be ideal. Purely optional or skippable, of course, something akin to how fighting game tutorials work, with increasing levels of complexity. Also, music does need a boost. It's a shame to hide the soundtrack so quietly, as it's currently louder in this video than it is in the actual game. Finally, a more complementary color palette would be useful, if that's at all possible in the game's current development stage, making enemies and characters a little bit more distinct from the background, just as long as you don't have to sacrifice your entire aesthetic to better accommodate my blind ass. If you like what you see in the Speedpass, consider supporting this game at the link below, or at the very least try the demo for yourself. Let's just hope the game reaches its goal so we can give this a much more proper look somewhere down the line.